What's going on, guys? It's BunnyMuffins. I'm going to be going over a guide for one of the comps that I introduced in my 10.1 Korea meta report, which I'll leave a link for in the description below. Azir Blademaster with Sivir is a completely nuts build. No surprise that it's become one of the strongest comps currently. Sivir comps are both reliable and strong, which makes them an easy force in this meta. Since the team revolves around Azir and Sivir, both of which cost only 3 gold, it's also a low econ composition and really just needs half decent items to succeed. You don't need to hit any late game legendaries in order to do well. Another reason why this is so reliable is because you can place top 4 even with only level 1 Sivir, if you have the proper items, that is. When the patch came out, players were prioritizing items such as Hush and Red Buff on Sivir, but as the patch matured, the unstoppable Infinity Edge build was discovered, and it made this composition forceable for at least top 4. In fact, the rank 1 player in NA, Soju, has forced it in every game he has played, and in those 8 games he got first place 4 times, second twice, and then he got a third and a fourth. With that being said, let's just hop right into the guide. So on the first carousel, you'll want to prioritize Sword for Infinity Edge. I like Sword over Gloves because you could also build Deathblade, which is pretty good. And if you can't get either of those, I'd go for Spatula next. At worst case, Sword can turn into a Spear of Shojin for Azir. In the early game, it's pretty basic. You want to get as many 2 stars as possible as usual, but the most important unit here is Renekton, followed by Leona. Renekton's a fantastic transition unit because he has a desert synergy, which he shares with both Azir and Sivir, so it's like a no-brainer to include him in your early game. Leona's the next best thing. You definitely want her because she has a great transition with Karma, and Wardens at the start are very strong. If you do happen to hit an Azir early or a Sivir, you could just go ahead and play them right away at level 1. You don't need them upgraded at all because you'll get the desert synergy from Renekton. If you get Infinity Edge, put it on Renekton, but obviously if you have a Sivir, you could put it on her right away. But as an early game item holder, let's say you don't get either Azir or Sivir, and you just have a random 4th unit in here, I just throw all the items on either the random 4th unit or Renekton. The only items you want to save in the early game are bows, which you'll need 2 of, spatula, 2 swords for 2 Infinity Edges, at least 1 glove, and 1 magic resist cloak for RUNAAN'S. So some items you can auto build, of course, is Infinity Edge. That's with sword and glove, and Blademaster, which is with spatula and bow. And then the rest of the items, health, armor, and ability power. You could go ahead and build whatever item combinations you want with those. Some things I like to do is just building red buff, locket of the Iron Solari, Warmogs, or Bramble Vest, just to get rid of the items. The reason why you're allowed to build these items early game is because they're not really useful for your core composition. So if you get those after the first few minion waves, I'd rather just build them than have them sit on my bench all game. During stage 2, you'll want to pick up any Azirs or Sivirs that you can. I'm going to show a sample build here with Yasuo and Sivir, assuming that you pick them up around this stage. You don't need them 2-star, you just need them 1-star, but if I were able to pick certain starting compositions, this would be something that's pretty strong. And I do not mind losing interest gold if I have either Azir or Sivir. If you already completed your first Infinity Edge, you could go ahead and prioritize RUNAA'N'S Hurricane next, as that is the best item combination on Sivir. RUNAA'N'S Hurricane, since it applies on hit abilities, it procs the Blademaster effect twice as fast, and it allows Sivir to get a lot of additional attacks. Now we move on to the mid game, which is stage 3 and 4. So you'll want to decide after Krugs how early you'll want to hit level 7. So if you are low health, let's say you're 70 health after Krugs, you should go for level 6 at stage 3-2 and roll to around 30 or 40 gold depending on how quickly you hit your upgrades. If you're less than 70 health at stage 3-5, you should level up to level 7 right away and roll to 0 or until you hit all of your upgrades except for 1 unit. On the contrary, if you're high health, such as above 70, you should go for 6 at stage 3-2, but only roll down until you can stabilize. That's maybe if you have like 2 or 3 unupgraded units, or until you reach 20 gold, whichever comes first. After that point, you do not spend any more of your gold, and you save until stage 4-1 or 4-2 to level up to level 7, and then you roll to 0. This gives you a much stronger mid to late game than rushing level 7 right away. So one sample mid-game build after the rolldowns, I'm going to take out Renekton and Nasus, assuming that you find Sivir and Azir. And then I'm going to add a random warden such as Thresh in this case. and then put in Karma as well. Right now we have 6 units out, which is very strong at level 6, and then at level 7 you'll want to try to add in Janna. Another person you could put in is Malphite for Thresh, because that's like a major upgrade right there. Units you are looking for during the roll down. Of course, our main goal is trying to finish Azir and Sivir, but mid-game wardens such as Thresh, Nautilus, Malphite are great to pair with Leona. Karma for Lunar. Yasuo is good as a Blademaster, and you could even play even more Blademasters if you manage to get the Blademaster item on Azir. You could go for Aatrox as well to get to 3 Blademaster. If you are on the mountain map, you could actually use Kiana as a pretty good transition unit with Malphite, or you could use her with Yasuo on the cloud map. Items at this stage in the game, you want to focus on finishing Blade of the Ruined King and building Infinity Edge or RUNAA'N'S if you haven't already. And you'll want to use any of your leftover items either on your tanks or on Azir. Those are the items that we cannot use for Sivir. However, we don't always get perfect items every game, so let's remove these 2 items off of Sivir. What would we build in this situation? So if we don't have any swords, we'll most likely have like tears and negatrons, maybe a health as well, or an armor. So then you just want to go into red buff and then hush on Sivir and have her be more of like the old utility build. This build's still fine, it just doesn't slap quite as hard as the Infinity Edge build, but you'll still get great placements with this. If you do have support items on Sivir, I like to put damage items on Azir such as Hat, or you could go and try the Jeweled Gauntlet Infinity Edge build as well. That one's pretty fun. Shojin's pretty decent as well. Now we're going to move into the late game. The composition should be pretty much fully rounded out at this point. If you haven't already hit level 8, go for it at 5-1. You have around 2 flex spots if you go to level 9, or if you find the Blademaster item and stay at level 8. So you'll need to scout your lobby and predict who will be in the top 4 and use your 2 flexible spots in order to counter that lobby. So I'm going to remove Thresh and Leona, and I'm going to keep a base of Yasuo, Janna, Azir, Sivir, and Karma. So right now we could add 3 or 4 units into the game. You have to ask yourself these questions. Do they have AP? Then we might want 4 Mystics, in which case you'll want to go for Master Yi in order to get there. Do they have a lot of attack damage? In that case, you'll want to run late game wardens such as Amumu and Taric, and Malphite are pretty good as well. Do they have high priority spells? Well then, maybe when you run Mystics, you'll want to add in a Soraka, because her silence can shut down key players of the enemy team. If you're seeing a lot of lights, and you already have the Infinity Edges on Sivir, it's fine to put a red buff on her because that's the best counter to lights. Another thing to ask is, did you high roll certain units such as Yorick? If you ended up getting Yorick, you could actually go into a summoner build, which is pretty interesting. It's really great when Azir is very strong, and you could add in Annie and Yorick, and then once you have you could take out Janna, and then you can add in Soraka as a Mystic and Aatrox for Blademaster, and then you could have 3 lights as well, which is very strong, and have these people in your front line. The last thing you'll want to think about is, did you high roll a Lux maybe, or maybe you have Nico's help and you can maybe try to fit her in? I say go for it. 2-star Lux with any sort of items is almost unstoppable. Just make sure that you have a strong front line, since you now have 3 heavy damage dealing threats. I'm going to show you guys a sample Mystic build, since those are pretty popular as well. So after I take out the summoners and some of the other units, I'm going to put Janna back in and then throw in Master Yi and Nami. And right now we have 7 units only, so you could add in any sort of tanks such as Malphite or Amumu or Taric to complete this composition. If you don't have the Blademaster item, then you'll have to add in Aatrox, and then you have 1 less slot to play with. As usual in the late game, you'll want to make sure that your Azir and Sivir are actually kind of spread apart, because you don't want them getting hit by the same spells, such as a Singe Poison could really cramp their day because they both will not get their ultimates off. If the enemy team has a Nami, you definitely don't want them on the same side of the map, as Nami's ultimate will hit both of them. As usual, you want to look out for Zephyrs and any other sorts of spells that could disable them. That's it for today for Blademasters. Again, it's a very strong composition. The rank 1 player in North America forced it 8 games in a row and did not place below top 4. And he got 1st and 2nd in 75% of his games. And that's why you really can't ignore this composition, especially when it's that easily forceable. You actually don't need to hit any 3-stars, and you don't need to hit the late game such as Master Yi and Nami as well. The mid game with Karma and Leona, with Lunar, with random wardens, very strong. My favorite warden is Malphite because he's cheap enough to be 2-starred, but strong enough to still be very powerful as the game goes on. Hope you guys enjoyed this guide. That's all I have for today. I played this composition quite a bit on my stream at twitch.tv/BunnyMuffinsLOL, so I'll be posting those throughout the week. I'll also be streaming again this Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, starting at 3 p.m. US Eastern Time. So follow me on Twitch to get notifications and see how I actually play these compositions. This Friday, I'll also be releasing a guide on each elemental map, such as Mountain, Cloud, Inferno, and Mountain. So if you're ever confused on what to do with each match or how you should alter your gameplay, look out for that video this Friday. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to share and subscribe, and of course smash that like button. Each like is an LP I gain before the next video.